Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Ba-da-ba-ba. All right. Promoter 101. 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 Promoter 101.
Hey, this is Jerry Goldman, Vice President of Booking and Event Operations at the United Center in Chicago. You're on Promoter 101.
The part of W. Luke Pierce will be played tonight by AEG's Jason Bernstein.
Once upon a time, there was a little podcast, but it didn't know it was a little podcast. So it just kept growing. And well, Jason, do you know who that podcast was?
No, I don't, Dan. Not a clue.
Fuck, I was hoping you'd have an idea. Anyway, this is Promoter 101. Certainly not the podcast that kept growing, but this could be the greatest podcast of all time. This episode's going to be huge, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if we can say that, Steiny.
Why not, Jason?
Well, calling it the greatest of all times, that's setting the bar pretty high. And, you know, as a lawyer, you got to be careful about these crazy claims.
With that attitude, clearly it's not going to be the greatest of all time, Jason. You're kind of into this in the wrong kind of way.
Actually, I think it is a pretty solid show. We've got City Winery's Shlomo Lipetz. He's going to give us the insider look at the hot venue chain's business model. And there's a war story from the legendary tour manager for artists such as the Rolling Stones, U2, Madonna, and AC/DC, the one and only Jake Berry. He's awesome.
So you're starting to come around and change your tune a little bit here, huh?
Yeah, you know, this actually might be your best show yet.
Not just our best show, but the best podcast in the history of any podcast ever. That's the kind of attitude and intensity we got to come at this fucking motherfucker today, Jason. What do you think?
I think we're going to sell you the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge.
Let's get it going.
Daniel Glick. I work for Evenco on Promoter 101.
Hey, Dan, I told my mom that I was going to be doing this podcast. I actually called my mother because that's what I'm supposed to do, and she was thrilled.
Hi, Jason's mom.
She wasn't quite sure, though, where to find it. Do you think you could remind the listeners where to find the podcast?
Well, you can tell your mom that she can listen to the podcast at Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube, and Google Music, and just search for Promoter 101. And I'm glad you called her.
She sends her regards.
Call your mother.
If any of the listeners are going to be making their trek to the International Live Music Conference in London, that's ILMC for the cool kids, it's going to be March 5th through 8th. The confirmed guests are K2's Sharon Richardson, X-Ray's Josh Draver, WME's Brian Ahern, and the legendary Tom Windish from Paradigm. This is going to be a big session, Dan. You're going to have the honor of chairing the agents panel this year because over in Britain, they don't call it moderating. They call it chairing. Very fancy.
Yeah, for more information, please check out ilmc.com. Can't wait to see you overseas, motherfuckers.
If you do the social media thing, follow Promoter 101 on Twitter. You can catch Luke at W. Luke Pierce. Dan's at The Jew. I'm Jason_Bernstein.
We're at Promoter 101 or Promoters 101, and that's thanks to you that we have both now. So thanks for that, Jason. Hey, if you have a free moment and you want to email us something, we are standing by. Steiny at promoter101.net. Email us or send us a message through Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, whatever platform you happen to be on. We're on Tumblr too. And I think our MySpace page might even be up and working. I'm not sure. Whatever you want. We're like everywhere. We're listening. Talk to us. Tell us what's on your mind. We can help you find the answer, or at least we can pretend like we know to the point where you feel secure in trying something. And then we'll go, you didn't pay for this advice. It's not like you can really hold a stab in the right answer. There's some laws about that, right, Jason?
You don't have to be correct. You just have to be believed.
This is Heath Bomar from APA, and I'm on Promoter 101.
There's no better way to name drop a ton of people than to announce the birthdays each week. And this week, it's February 19th to 25th, 2019.
Tuesday the 19th. Happy birthday to Rhett Lee and Blaine Kaplan.
On Wednesday, February 20th, Segi Isho, Jake Leighton Pope, Nikki McNeil, Guy Sykes, Ted Walker, and Ted Coate.
Tuesday the 21st, Dana Nail.
Friday, February 22nd, happy birthday to Jeff Howard.
The 23rd, Howard Pollock. Isn't it funny how that worked? Jeff Howard, Howard Pollock. Boom.
Serendipity. And on Sunday, February 24th, it's Jessica Christensen's birthday.
On the 25th, Aaron Zimmerman, Kevin Hopkins, Ari Solomon.
Happy birthday from all your friends at Promoter 101.
Eric Sells with Paradigm Agency on Promoter 101.
Now here's a great war story from the legendary tour manager of artists including the Rolling Stones, U2, Madonna, and AC/DC, the one and only Mr. Jake Berry.
Okay, so when you go and see a sound show, you're fascinated by how much Mick runs. The energy of the man is unbelievable. I believe he's 75 now. And this was a few years back. We were doing a show in Tokyo at the Tokyo Dome. Baseball stadiums are a lot wider. We can gauge football fields. I was going on about Mark Fisher. We always designed the main body of the show so we could play any football stadium, whether it was 100,000 people or 18,000 people, whether you went and played the newest stadium they're building in LA or go to the smallest football field that, like 20,000 where the Chargers playing. And then we used to add on. So Mick came up to me one day and he goes, Jake, I have a question for you. How do you know how long to build my runways, left and right? I said, simple answer, Mick. We build them till we hit the wall or we run out of staging material. That was it.
So you guys just carried as many decks to cover the biggest room as possible.
Yeah, we carry as many as decks as the trucks will allow. You got 18 steel trucks. You're certainly not taking 19 because you want to go another 10 feet aside. Whatever we got there, that's where we finished. On some of the Stones with wider shows, we would actually go down to the last screw jack, the last cup, the last standard, and the last deck after we built a loading dock or a weighing off the stage to build Mickey's runways.
So every night it could be a different size runway.
Primarily, like I said, we always built the middle body of the stage the same. It was always 220 feet.
There's a minimum.
Yeah, that's what you could do. Because back those days, the old Giant Stadium, and you had to play it. That's what it was. So we made that the standard, and then we would just add on if we played baseball stadiums or if it's a little wider. And I mean, I'm not talking adding 70 or 80 feet. I'm talking maybe 25, 20.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jake.
Okay.
So we've got Jake coming up for a full interview in a couple weeks, and I got to tell you, spoiler alert, it's pretty fucking epic.
Larry Magid Entertainment Group, and I'm on Promoter 101.
So what does it take to be the badass of the week?
Well, there are some serious data metrics that are involved. I have to be thinking about you when I'm writing the script, and you have to have not pissed me off later. It's probably good if you hadn't been badass of the week in the last couple. Those are really the data metrics that we use to come up with. It's very heavy. It's NASA-esque.
Impressive. And so who is badass of the week?
This week's Badass of the Week is SJM from London's president, Simon Moran, one of the biggest concert promoters in the UK, making him this week's Promoter 101 Badass of the Week.
Definitely a badass. Congratulations. Well done, Simon.
Rod Essig. I work at CAA, and I'm on Promoter 101.
In our feature interview this week, we have my favorite Lensman, City Winery's Shlomo Lipetz, giving the inside look at the hot venue chain's business model.
Hanging out with Shlomo, City Winery in the house.
What's up? What's up?
So, your parents obviously part of the Christian religion, right?
Oh, yeah, totally Christian. Well, one of my first obstacles when I started in the business was trying to convince people that I'm not Rabbi Shlomo from Brooklyn. But, it's an old man Jewish name. I'm named after my grandfather, grew up in Israel, and kind of maintained that name.
I love it. You're in the right city for that, by the way. New York, you can definitely pull that off.
True.
All right, so let's get past the Jew jokes and jump very deep into this. Probably one of the few places in the world you can say I'll get away with Jew jokes.
You've never had any Jews on the podcast, right? None of them in the business.
It's amazing how, actually, if you look back at the industry, because it's such a Jewish-dominated industry, but really on the music side over the last 15 to 20 years has really changed that up. And I would say that we are now not the minority by any means, even on the agency side.
Actually, a fun fact, what percent of the population in the world do you think is Jewish?
I fucking no idea. I would say like 5%.
0.02% of the world population is Jewish. That's pretty...
All right, now how much money do we control?
Well, a lot. But then you start looking, in Africa, probably not too many Jews. Australia, not too many Jews. So you start eliminating the continents, and then you're just left with, a higher percentage in some and less in others. So we could now move on now that you have this fun fact
Let's talk City Winery and then we'll talk about your history. We'll go backwards. You guys are opening rooms like gangbusters. Obviously, New York is where the whole thing kind of started, but massive success right now.
We're in rapid growth period, meaning we're putting any few shekels that we're getting into the business back into the business, and we're just kind of trying to kind of plant these flags in as many places as possible, especially kind of in New York, Boston, DC, now Philadelphia, trying to kind of create some kind of hub where we'll have a little easier time to route kind of artists through. But we're definitely growing fast and with a pretty small team, so there's a lot on our plates.
Okay, and you guys have definitely been talking Denver. I've been hearing those rumors.
Denver is a big market and one that's good for music. We're talking a bunch of markets right now. I think the next couple will probably be, Philadelphia and Toronto, probably big ones on our plate.
Ooh, jumping a border. Toronto makes sense for that. When you look at a market like Denver, are you thinking, okay, the Soil Dove's already there. That's something that's been there for a while that has a very similar model. Are you guys worried about those kind of competitions already in the market?
There's definitely some competition. I mean, we feel that we do something and we didn't invent the supper club type of venue. We just feel like we're good people. We do it right. We take care of the artist. For us, it's just a matter, can the market sustain not having any dark nights? I mean, we have to have a show every single night. That's our business model. Until that changes, we just need to think of markets that could sustain that, not only with artists routing through the market, but also just, is there enough population that will go out to see 7 shows a week? Is there enough population? Even Nashville, which is our probably smallest market, only now in year 3, now that there's been rapid growth of the population. But still, you see in a place like Nashville, we're routing artists through there instead of once or twice a year, like we do in other markets. We have to skip sometimes a year just because there's just not enough local population that consumes music. But yeah, competition worries. I mean, look in DC that we just opened up. There's kind of fierce competition. In Chicago, there's competition. In New York, there's competition. Again, we just have to win them over.
So your vibe is about intimacy and delivering a very fun dinner show experience, Rat Pack Sands kind of vibe of the 50s, right? So it's something that we've kind of lost because supper clubs used to be everywhere. That's where you'd see your, Tony Bennett's anywhere in the country. They'd be these places, Turn of the Century in Denver, what have you. But they all went by the wayside. And your average venue is what, like 3.5-ish, give or take? 300
capacity across the board.
So you're not competing with the Broadway theaters that these acts are normally playing. So an act will sit down and do 4 shows over the course of a weekend or something.
It's just about finding the niche, right? I mean, we'll take turns, if we have like a band like the Mountain Goats, they'll do electric kind of standing room show one year and then they'll come back and they'll do a sit down show. One year, David Crosby really wants to do a town hall seated theater, and the next year he'll want to do 3 or 4 nights. We just feel like we're creating this really great experience, and we trust what we do. I mean, one of the things that I like about City Winery the most, and that's across the board, we have this really strong, loyal group of people that come see shows, sometimes 6, 7, 8 shows a month. And those people have a real connection to the venue and a real connection to our staff and a real connection to what we're trying to do. The point I'm trying to make is that we feel confident that even after one of those, the artists come and let's say David Crosby and Graham Nash does a town hall, we could then announce the next day a show with that same artist the following week and we'll still sell out because you have this kind of group of people that just will wait out another play in the market just to see that show at City Winery.
So it's not uncommon for you guys to announce a show a week out?
It's not uncommon. Obviously, we prefer as much time as possible, but we've added the Lewis Black, 3 days before a show. We've added
something that's like a no-brainer.
Yeah, we had talking about our friend CJ over here when we were booking Greg Allman with him, and we had a 10-night run, and the eve of the night that he was supposed to load in to do his 10-night run, he canceled the run. That was the last time he was supposed to do a public appearance. We turned around and flew in Colin Hayne, flew in Richard Thompson, and flew in a bunch of folks and announced those shows the week of and sold them out because, again, we have this kind of loyal group of people, members, what we call Vinophile members.
You call them what?
Vinophile membership. They pay $99 a year. They don't pay surcharge. They get to choose their own seats. That's our ambassadors, our little ambassadors out there that are just come and consume music.
Everything works in your room, right? And it's kind of a family thing. You guys are all ages venues for the most part, right?
All ages, always.
So it's a place where, in most cases in the city, anything that's small, you can't take your kids. But you guys are a dinner club where people can bring their kids, they can have a drink, they can relax and watch a show.
Well, let's put it this way. It's not uncommon for artists to say, you know what, I'm bringing my parents. This is one of those places where, they're going to bring their family or their kids and it's not going to stink of beer and they'll be taken care of and they'll look good and all that stuff. So it could be a family affair. We've had some weird ones, late night stuff, but for the most part, kind of, what you get.
So you guys have expanded to a lot of markets and there's a big team. How many rooms now?
Well, we have 6 venues, and then in a couple of markets, we have a couple of spaces. So our new model is having like a 100 to 150 capacity room in addition to the larger room. So we have 2 in New York now, 2 in DC, 2 in Boston, 2 in Nashville, and then 1 in Chicago and 1 in Atlanta. And then we have these 2 kind of the hubs, restaurants, 1 in Chicago called Riverwalk and 1 in New York called City Vineyard, which are more kind of eateries / people, young men and women pounding wine and spending money.
Any way to get them in. It's funny. People just normally want people in to drink, but it's just like the average meal is not $5. It's not McDonald's. The dining experience is quite a thing there.
It's not too expensive, to be honest. And we kind of made a strategic decision in the beginning not to do any minimum, like some other clubs. The vibe when you walk in and you're planning to spend some money anyway. And then
Chucky's House of Comedy. 2 drink minimums. What do you want?
None of that. But, if people want to come in and drink a glass of water, they can. And again, with a lot of the folks that come to see shows on a regular basis, how many times can you eat our fucking flatbread or, the burger? So they don't always spend as much as we want them to.
All right. So let's dive back into your history. You don't get to oversee things of this nature in this industry without doing a little bit of grunt work first. Where did it start? Where did it come from?
Well, I started late, moved from Israel to San Diego. I went to school, played ball for about 9 years, then moved to New York when I was 29. Went to school for international relations. Obviously, like the average Joe student, American student, didn't want to do what I studied. Like, okay, well, what do I like to do? I like music. I'm an obsessive collector of music. I'm a hoarder. Moved to New York. Let me just see what Craigslist has to offer. Lo and behold, the small Jewish music label called Oihu Records appears on Oihu Records. Don't ask. Yeah, it's very Jewy. Well, when you work with Michael, you start, collecting that kind of. You're doing the downtown Seder, and you have the Schmooze Fest or Schmooze Conference, and the
Schmooze Conference. Is that a thing?
It was, and we had that for probably 5 or 6 years. We had aspiration to do the Jewish Polestar, so Jewish artists and klezmer artists from Poland, from whatever fucking Hungary could now route through all the JCCs and the Jewish homes around the country. That luckily did not happen. We're no longer doing the Schmooze Fest. Point is, I find myself in the office interning for Michael Dorf, who is an assistant in a small office in Tribeca, really doing nothing. We had 2 artists. It was Hannah Rothman and Pharaoh's Daughter.
Obviously epic start.
Yeah. I mean, these folks, I was like, pulling CDs from the inventory. Luckily, I had a bar job, was paying well. So instead of doing twice a week, I was interning for 5 days a week. I would just, most of the time, just sit, twirl my thumbs, do really nothing. And did that for about a year when people start asking, okay, well, dude, what's up? You're working for this guy who is not even paying for your subway ride. What's going on? And then I went back home to Israel and I get an email from Michael saying, hey, man, I'm opening up this place called City Winery. Do you want to join? I'm like, fuck yeah. Came back from Israel from my summer vacation and basically moved into a construction site, which was Varick and Van Dam City Winery in New York City, with no real clue besides how to pull CDs for Hannah Rothman and Pharaoh's Daughter.
So learn by doing.
Initially the plan was to only do 3 shows a week at City Winery and the rest of the time be open as a restaurant. Initially sending emails on behalf of Michael because nobody who knew I was, and then did the progression where I'm assistant to Michael Dorf and then me copying him and all the notes, and then slowly transitioning into what now is a case where basically he's opening up City Wineries and I'm overseeing the programming.
So all the talent buyers in all the venues answer to you?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, listen, Michael, for good or for bad, mainly for good, is my mentor. He really taught me the ropes, started the Knitting Factory. He has a long time in the industry.
Is there still a connection there between the Knitting Factory and Michael?
Zero. Eventually, when he opened up LA, he basically got bought out after they opened in LA. So he had nothing to do with the move from Manhattan to what is now Knitting Factory Brooklyn and Williamsburg.
Got it.
I mean, that's what happens when you open up a place when you're 21 and you just split the cake into too many pieces. Eventually, you just kind of kicked out. And obviously, he made all the adjustments for City Winery that would not happen again. He definitely pushed me in the right place, but then ultimately it's just about spending time with the artists, spending time with the agents, spending time in the room, living in the room, breaking my teeth on it, and really figure out what do we need to do that's different from other places, just spending time talking with artists, hearing, horror stories where they go to a place and they play and the only person that they meet is the floor manager or the security guy, or playing a sold out show and being charged for a beer or for a glass of whiskey at the end of the show. Those are some of the things that were so important for my development, trying to hear and just trying to implement and doing different, showing my face, introducing myself, handing the check, helping with the load in, all that stuff is just, I think, something that I've tried to now incorporate and when I'm mentoring the other buyers as we hire and grow.
Let's go back to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Why America?
I had this crazy dream since I was 10 years old that I want to play college baseball. Not pro baseball, college baseball. My mom was originally from the States. I happened to be in the States in 86 when I was 7, saw a Met game, got into it, went back to Israel, basically asked my friend, hey, do you know this game, the game of baseball? And he's like, oh, my dad plays softball. So we started the first baseball kind of team, and I got the bug early. Right after my military service, 5 days after I was done, while most Israelis go and start inhaling, and dropping acid in India and all over in Australia, I was walking on in college and trying my luck in playing baseball.
I'm not sure if you're kidding. Is that what most Israelis do after?
If you travel around in South America, in Australia, and India, you're like, fuck, dude, there's 50 million Israelis because they all travel and they go to Goa and they go to, travel and do treks and they come back to Israel like, fuck this, I'm going back, and they do 2 or 3 rounds.
So it's mandatory when you grow up in Israel that you do time before
3 years. Men 3 years, women 2 years. So I think it's kind of that knee-jerk reaction after being 3 years and basically not being allowed to
do anything
to just do the exact opposite.
So you said you played ball for 9 years when you got to San Diego.
I lived in San Diego for 9 years, walked on a junior college, then got a scholarship in a 4-year school at UC San Diego. Played pro in San Diego for a year, went back.
Played for the Padres?
Did not play for the Padres. I played for down in Tecate in Mexico, played independent ball in San Diego. Went back in 2007. They had 1 pro year of baseball in Israel in 2007, was part of that. Then came back, and then a year later I moved to New York, where I still play ball, but obviously not year long. It's a little harsh in the cold weather.
Well, yeah, and it's a 22-year-old's game, right?
Well, it's smart. I'm a pitcher. It's all about location, changing speed.
I like it. Incredibly competitive world. So to come into the music industry where everybody's fighting for shows, it's something you're already used to.
You know what? It's not even, I don't even think that really helped. I think what helped was just musicians, for some reason, love the fact that they could talk about something else besides that. And, most folks, most musicians, most people like baseball in some capacity. So I've definitely kind of twisted that to my advantage, and just being able to talk about something else that's not, boring or just music oriented is definitely been nice.
So is Hebrew your first language?
It is.
You've been here forever. Do you think in English or do you think in Hebrew?
At this point, I think in English. I do sometimes mix it up when I talk to my cats, part in Hebrew, part in English, because I want them to understand both. But I still read in Hebrew. I still go back, obviously visit my family and friends. I try to kind of keep that language alive, but for the most part, I'm all about English these days.
I remember from my Hebrew school days, having to read the opposite direction was a hell of a thing. So keeping that up, being able to go in both directions has got to really mess with your head a little bit.
Fucking way I would have learned the language if I wasn't from there. Let's put it this way. And, it's a little easier when you're coming from a place where, English is on TV and they teach that in school. It's a little different. Now, not that my English is by any way perfect now, but actually my aunt just sent me
it's better than mine.
My first essay that I wrote in college for the admission, and it was really bad.
I think you get a learning curve when you're speaking a foreign language.
True, and I try to take it in humor. I try to meet people in person, not only because of my name, but also because, like, who the fuck is this guy with this broken English and the emails and all that stuff?
But nobody's ever going to forget you. You've got a very distinctive name in America. It's great.
True.
It's not like you're going to change it to Judd or anything.
I don't want anyone to think that I'm like a 65-year-old, bald Jew from Brooklyn. That's my point.
You think of Hanukkah Harry when you think of Shlomo.
Hey, man, do you want to twist a dreidel with me?
Well, this has been Schmooze for Jews with Shlomo on Promoter 101. Thank you so much.
You got it, man. Thank you for having me.
Shlomo is truly impressive. Thankful that he granted us with the honor of his presence here on P101. See what I did there? P101 like a radio station. P101!
For your morning drive.
I'm Jason Miller. I'm the president of Live Nation New York, live and direct on Promoter 101.
The quote of the week comes to us from Eleanor Roosevelt. You must do the things you think you cannot do. It's a little bit of a mind fuck there, huh?
Powerful words.
You'd expect me to go to the Eleanor Roosevelt quote this morning, huh? I'm just like, boom, I'm inside there.
You were doing something that I did not think you could do.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Jason Miller from Live Nation, SVP of International and Emerging Markets. You are on Promoter 101.
hey, write to the guys by emailing steiny@promoter101.net.
We'll be back this Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. That's 8 p.m. on the coast, basically midnight in London. So maybe you guys listen to it in the morning. I don't know.
And it's going to feature the legendary agent from CAA, Rod Essick, sharing his views of the business.
Got to tell you, Rod, man, epic career. He knows what he's talking about. That's going to be a great interview. Plus, we have a war story from Evenco's Daniel Glick. So a little bit of Nashville, a little bit of Montreal. We're giving you a whole lot of North America, but we're spreading it out pretty good. Like a nice schmear.
Hold on, Dan. You're in North America and Canada. That makes it international.
I will point out that Canada is part of North America.
I'm just saying, if there's a lot of people who think that if you're playing the U.S. and Canada, that makes your tour international.
And I agree with that. It isn't an international tour if you play two countries. You play Vancouver and Seattle, and that's your only two markets on the entire tour. You've just played an international tour. Technically.
It's a global business, my friend.
If you're truly going to be international, you really need to be jumping over a bunch of the oceans. That means playing Asia. That means playing Australia. That means messing around with Russia a little bit and obviously hitting the UK and then taking a serious stab at South America and then hitting Mexico, the States, and Canada with all your might. Because when you have a global business, that means playing India too. It just does. Not just playing Denver and Phoenix. That's not a global business yet.
I agree. Anyway, until next week, we're wishing you sold out shows.
Cheers!
Call your mother!
Hi, it's Kira Finkenberg. I'm the marketing and ticketing guru for Andy Hewitt and Bill Silver Presents. I'm on Promoter 101.
Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-ba.